Hi, everyone, and welcome to the International Women's Day series that we're doing here at Hekaya. This month, we wanted to shine light on female founders who are doing really well in their respective industries. So I'm really excited today to have Radhika Bhachu, who is joining us from Ndovu. So Ndovu is a micro-investment platform that allows people to invest in local international markets, and this is done through education as well. But I'll let Radhika provide a brief introduction as well.
Hi, everyone. First of all, Rashlin, you're looking stunning.
Hey, so do you.
Thanks. But thank you so much for having me. So just for those of you who don't know us, check us out, ndovu.co. Essentially, what we do is we empower Kenyans to take the money that they've worked really hard to earn and put it to work so they can actually achieve financial freedom. And we do that by being educational along the way. So if you download the app, you'll actually see how you can easily save towards retirement, create a goal, and it's super easy to use. So I would recommend that you actually have a look at it, play around, and we are always welcome for feedback.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Radhika. So what Radhika does and what Ndovu does, it's especially interesting, because we all want to work our money, so not have it sitting there in a bank, growing cobwebs, basically.
She said it well. Cobwebs,
cobwebs. But also just having someone who's working in a financial space, which is very different from the women that we've had so far in this IWD series. And I know that I will especially be learning a lot today. So actually, before we delve into the conversation and building Ndovu, maybe Radhika, you could provide us a little bit of introduction, maybe the career before starting Ndovu and what led you down the path.
Yeah, I know. I think when I look at the way we have grown, and as a human as well, nothing was really planned. I think you do the best you can in every situation, and then things fall into place.
Yeah.
So before Ndovu, I had the opportunity. So I'm Kenyan, born and raised, always came back every summer, but was in London for over 15 years.
Wow.
So actually worked there, started my career at Deloitte, and I was an investment consultant there. What does that mean? Sounds kind of fancy. Really, it just means we were advising pension funds how to take the money they have and grow it so they can pay their liabilities. And then that was a time where I was sitting behind Excel spreadsheets, like crunching numbers.
It's a really fun time.
Really fun times. And I realized very quickly that my skill set was better suited with people.
Yeah.
So I decided to actually move to BlackRock, which is the world's largest asset manager.
Yeah.
And again, they're very much working with clients to understand what are the problems when it comes to money.
Yep.
How can we make the right investment decisions and help them grow their money? And then in 2019, I decided to move back just before COVID. So I got very lucky. I was very grateful and thankful for that. And when I moved back, I knew I wanted to set up a business. And when growing up, I don't know whether any of you ever have this feeling. Yeah. You don't really know what the words are. Everyone asks you, what do you want to be? But you just have a vision.
Yeah.
And my vision was always to run a company. I didn't know what it looked like.
Yeah.
Didn't know what it was. But the problem was that I came from finance. I'm in a new city. Yes, I'm Kenyan, but I haven't had any work experience here. So I lacked understanding of the market. So I sat in rooms with really amazing, incredible people, CEOs of banks. I went for random coffees with different people. Every opportunity I had, I took it to learn. And then realized, okay, if I'm going to set a business, I don't have that skill set. So I just was thinking, okay, how can I do this? Either go to do an MBA, which is really costly and timely, or I just get started. But there's another hack that you can do is just go to an accelerator program. There's quite a few incubators here. So Antler, Women in Business, CC Hub, Endeavor, Founders Factory, things like that. And I was like, okay, now I want to learn how to set up a business. And one of the key things that, like assumptions or something that was debunked, was I thought when setting up a business, you have to figure out supply. So where do I source the product? Whatever business it is. But actually the real value comes from figuring out who's going to buy it first. And so for me, that was like my first learning. And since then we launched in last year, February 2022. We've grown significantly. We are now regulated by the Capital Markets Authority, which is a huge achievement in this space. And yeah, we're continuing to grow. So that's how I got into being a founder.
And so that's incredible. And obviously prior to this, it was a very illustrious career as well. But you said yourself that entrepreneurship is something that was baked inside you. So in terms of finding this gap in the market, was it something that you had come across prior to joining Antler? But how was this the idea Because I'm sure you tested it quite a lot. And I remember we had conversations about this too. So how did you land on this idea and decide that it was the one?
Yeah, exactly. So we, when I went to this accelerator program, I always knew that this was something that we need to bring to Kenyans, Africans. Why is it that the West have the opportunity to take the little money they have, such as little as $50, 5,000 shillings, despite the the FX rate being really terrible today. I don't know if you guys have seen the news.
Today's the dollar.
That's another whole conversation. But essentially, we knew that we had to bring something like that because the African population, Kenyans especially, are becoming more sophisticated.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of pilots before we launched. One of the key things we did was before even creating a product. So in this accelerator program, I met my founders.
Amazing.
We have different skill sets, which is super important. And we tried several ideas. And the way we knew this was the idea was after running several experiments, before we launched the product, we had $3 million committed from 102 customers. Yeah. No one exchanged money. Yeah. It was just a pipeline commitment. But this gave us confidence that this was the space we should play in.
That's incredible. So it's something as in like a prototype if we're talking about it from a product perspective.
Correct.
So in terms of prototyping it, so that was the way that you tested it within the market. So was it done in terms of focus groups, or how did you go about finding people who would commit this income or money, basically?
So I always like to say to any friend that's starting a business, your friends, family is your net worth. And for us, we actually went through our friends and family and then opened it up to a subset of people. Yeah. So people with the same mindset.
Okay.
And the reason that was important is because we were trying to identify who our target market was.
Yeah.
And I always say this, you guys have probably seen this on Instagram, lots of memes. Why do you have baby showers? You should actually have business showers.
Yeah.
And so I always put my friends on the spot and say, hey, would you use this? But give me honest feedback.
Yeah.
And actually through our friends network, there's 3 of us, we able to hit our numbers to give us enough confidence to say this is the business we should run.
Amazing. So you went through this accelerator program. So after completing it to basically when the business was born, what did that process look like? Because I imagine getting regulation is quite an arduous process.
Yeah. So actually we had a bit of a funny story.
Yeah.
So I went through this accelerator program and then COVID happened and we all had to work offline. And that is really detrimental to getting to know your founders. You have to keep in mind what these accelerator programs do is they put very smart, educated people who have areas of expertise. So mine was finance, Rose was regulation.
Yeah.
And you have to figure out if you can really build a business together, which means, can you marry this person? Because honestly, I probably speak to my co-founders more than I speak to my husband because you spend most of your time at work.
Yeah.
So I think that was the first really important part. So when I went through the accelerator program, I was actually with different founders. But the idea was conceived during that period.
Okay.
And at the end of this accelerator program, they actually offer you some money and they take a proportion of your company. So that's called equity financing. So essentially what we're saying is that Rashlin will say, okay, I believe in your idea and I'm going to give you $100,000, but I'm going to own 20% of your company. And that's loosely how the venture capital world works. And of course, we were pre anything. We had no revenue. We had no cash flows. We just had a presentation that was like, I think I can do this. And this is why.
Yeah.
So we actually didn't get the funding, which I'm really grateful for because I am no longer we're not the same founding team.
Yeah.
And it's all for good reasons. We didn't have the right skill set to take this business where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So after that, I did find Ro and GP through the same accelerator program. We started ideating, but we had no money. So the question really was, how do we raise money? Who's going to give us money? Ultimately, I think a lot of female founders really struggle with raising funds.
What's the exact statistic? Is it less than, is it 1%?
So less than 1% of African VC money goes to female.
Wow. Okay.
Female founders. So
and do you know the percentage globally?
I don't actually know it globally.
But it's very low as well, isn't it?
It is very low. And I think, and we'll touch upon a few topics as to why I think that is.
Yeah.
But essentially, one of the key things is that females do struggle to raise money. And that's because A, we don't know how to position our business. 2, we underwrite ourselves. We don't give ourselves enough credit than it's worth. And 3, we just haven't had the exposure. So be very diligent with making sure the company is profitable, but we're unable to sell the dream to venture capitalists. And of course, if you can't show the vision of why do you think this is going to be profitable, it's really hard to raise money.
So as a business, you have also gone through the fundraising journey, and that's an area that you've excelled in tremendously as well. So what did that, because we were pivoting onto how does that fundraising journey look for you? And I guess for anyone out there who's going through a fundraising journey, kind of, to-dos, not to-dos.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm a bit biased. I love fundraising. So it's exactly what I did at BlackRock, but on the other side. So I think the first key thing about building or creating a fundraising plan, so you need a plan. And the first step starts with what's your business. And I know this is going to be a bit methodical, but I think it's probably best for me to lay it out just in case someone listening wants to understand.
Because this is... I think it's really important to talk about this. It lifts the lid on what it takes a journey to getting started, depending where your funding is coming from. But just once there's more understanding, it might make it easier for people to want to do it. So it is important. Yeah.
And I think the first thing is we all have ideas, but I guess at the first time, there's 4 things that you need to really portray. So first of all is is this a big enough problem? So, for example, is there money in our instance? Is there money sitting in banks that is losing value because of inflation?
Yeah.
Could people in Kenya or Africa do more with their money and make sure they achieve financial freedom? And that problem is actually big enough. There's currently 300 million Africans who are excluded from formal financial markets. So this means they don't have a bank account. They're earning money, but they don't have money management skills. And that's a large number. So the idea is the first thing is to tackle and portray that the problem is big enough. The second thing is how do you tie in that your company, your solution solves for that problem? And then really looking at, am I the right team? Do I have the right skill set? Do I have enough knowledge to really be the one that's going to take this business to another level? And I think those are roughly 3. And then the last one, you do a bit more deep diving into the market size, get some interesting data, and you put together a deck. It's easy. I always say put pen to paper, as they say, but nowadays just start typing. And then once you have your deck, you also need to understand how much are you raising. So how much money do you need to borrow today in order to get your business to a meaningful size? And that's a really difficult one. But again, you just get started. So you look at what other companies are in the similar space are doing. You say, okay, if I get $100,000, let's work backwards. Can I do X, Y, Z? Can I get revenue to, let's say, $1,000 for the year? Is it possible? So once you've done your deck, I always recommend is to get warm introductions when it comes to fundraising. A lot of the mistake we made is that we started just cold messaging individuals, and then you get disheartened because you're not getting a response. And actually, it is a tough journey. So the best thing to do is, if you believe in the 8 degrees of separation, you will find someone who's willing to invest. So I would create, a spreadsheet with names of angel investors. So there are different types of investors. Angels can do smaller checks, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, all the way to $100,000, depending on your angel. And also try and get some friends and family to invest in you. There's nothing wrong with that. If they really believe in you and your vision. And I think at this stage, it's very much selling you. It's because you're going to learn so many things, which we learned so many things that we thought were meant to be, but weren't.
So would you say angel investors or VCs, would they buy into a founder? Because I guess they get a lot of the problems, the solutions, etc. Would you say buying into the founder is more important? Because also you want to align with your investor, right?
100%.
Yeah.
So just remember that when you're setting up a business, everything's got to do with being human. So Rashan, you're 90% more likely to give me money if you like me. When it comes to fundraising, it is about how you make the investor feel, and half of your job is done. So if you can give them confidence that you know what you're doing, know your numbers. If there's something you don't know, it's okay to say, I actually don't know that, but I will figure it out on the journey. But honestly, it's really about relationships. Sales is relationships. Funny fact is that you can actually get people to do a lot more if you're just kinder. And it really goes a long way.
No. I mean, it comes because we had someone on before talking about kindness in customer.
Yes.
Well, we talk about customer service. But just kindness just goes a long way. Yeah.
And I also think, like, just when you're a business owner, keeping a customer is much easier than acquiring a new one.
Yeah.
And the value of delivering good customer service means that customer, if something goes wrong, they're more likely to forgive you.
Yeah.
And actually, coincidentally, somebody told me that Hekaya has excellent customer service.
Thank you very much.
I know. They're like, they have solid customer service. I was like,
thank you.
Perhaps my team can learn a thing or two from you.
Black Friday really, it lifted the lid on that one. But everyone comes out during sales time,
Of course.
in force. The trolls come out in force, but no. So that's really interesting around fundraising. And of course, I believe that's can be a whole other podcast itself, because there is so much for people to learn. Do you think it's a space that has enough knowledge out there, or is it like in terms of knowledge sharing, or do you believe people like to hold cards close to their chest when it comes to fundraising?
So I think it's mixed. I think if you're rolling in the right circles, again, your network is your net worth. Yes, there's infinite heaps and heaps of data.
Yeah.
And you do need someone who's done it before to just give you the do's and don'ts. But a couple of do's in fundraising is be prepared, know your numbers, go for a warm introduction, understand how much you're raising, why you're raising that particular amount, and just make sure that at that stage, no one is expecting you to have all the answers. So be candid, be kind, build that relationship. The don'ts, I would say, are don't get disheartened when you get rejections, because the reality is, in this journey, I have been rejected so many times that it doesn't faze me anymore.
Reject you? Why?
I know. No, but honestly, it's like rejection is part of the game.
Yeah.
1 rejection, 30 rejections, 1 yes. And you're like, whoa, one yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess it's just perseverance, right? To keep your vision clear and to just keep going for it relentlessly.
Yeah. And I think another don't is investors will try and navigate you in the wrong direction. So you have to almost build a wall of, you absorb what they're saying, but only some things are relevant. Don't believe everything but don't take everything they say on board, because you as the founder really know what's good for your business. So you just have to stay clear in your mind that this is where I'm going based on data, not feeling. And I know better. Whereas investors, yes, they see different business models, but none of us have the same thinking. So it's very important to, as a founder, keep that confidence of, okay, that's interesting. Don't change your strategy over it.
No, I think that's really useful and really interesting. And just to be able to connect with other founders around it just helps you grow. Mm-hmm. But what I want to strip it back now to is if we can just talk about the Ndovu experience. So I've signed up to your platform. I've downloaded the app. So how does the whole experience work? Talk me through that.
Yeah, no, sure thing. So I think there's a crazy stat that says 87% of the world has no financial literacy.
Yeah, I can semi-believe that, because if we think back to when we were in school, a lot of what we're taught, such as trigonometry,
Pythagoras,
protractor, it's not applicable now.
Not at all.
But there's a lot in terms of finances that I always wish that we were taught when we were in school. So that doesn't, because you could be earning a lot, but you wouldn't know necessarily how to invest or grow your money, basically.
Exactly. And also, it doesn't just stem at like different income levels. This is the case throughout the entire generation.
Yeah.
So, very high net worth individuals all the way down to people mass market, they just don't have the education. So a key component of our journey is trying to educate individuals to understand that, firstly, investment is for the long term. Yeah. So you'll hear these amazing, like, I got rich quick schemes. Yeah, I put this much in this company and I sold.
Yeah.
You'll never hear about the losses. Yeah. And we are very focused on long-term wealth.
Yeah.
And the way that works is before you start investing, when you sign up on the platform, we ask you 6 questions based on your lifestyle. And what that means is, based on financial education that we know, we will tell you, based on the information you've provided us today, Rashlin, based on your lifestyle, this is the amount of risk you should be looking to take at any one time. And then based off of that, we tell you where to invest.
Okay.
And I think that's the difference, right? So the advice is custom. It's very different when someone has 1 million shillings in their savings versus 10,000 shillings.
Yeah.
Those two individuals should not be investing in the same things. And it is a lot more complex, but we really simplify it. And the idea is that we only encourage investment through a fund. Yeah. So we don't. So stock picking is almost like a Robin Hood model, whereby Ration would say, I believe in Apple and I'm going to only put all my money I earn in Apple. But that is super risky.
Yeah.
Because as an everyday investor, we don't have the time, the knowledge, or the skill set to understand why Apple is the best company to hold. Instead, we say, why don't you just hold the technology sector?
Yeah.
And in order to hold the technology sector, it's a fund.
Yeah.
So instead of holding one company, you're holding 500 different companies, for example.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we're making sure you're investing responsibly, is the key word. And can I be completely honest with you? If you look back 100 years, the people who invest responsibly through funds have actually made more money than individuals who have gone to say, I believe, or betting on a particular company. Because what happens when you're betting, the losses are high.
Yeah.
But if you just play the boring, simple, I'm going to believe in a sector like healthcare, technology, whatever it might be, you're still earning steady returns over time.
That's incredibly interesting, and I hope everyone is taking notes and getting their apps out to download Ndovu. But when you say we, so if you want to, like, say, you want to put in 50,000 shillings. So when you say we, do you have a dedicated team, or like how are you advised onto like what funds or what to invest in, basically?
Yeah, so the app generally is quite user friendly, but for the month of March, because we're also doing IWM month, we're actually offering free financial planning sessions, which typically cost you about 10,000 shillings for absolutely free. So we don't charge 10,000 shillings. It's typically 2,500 for one, but we're giving it absolutely free for females.
So also, so free session for females to come and just understand, what do I do with this pool of money that's sitting there?
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And we don't just focus on like what you should invest. That is the outcome, but we take it a step back and say, how do you budget? How are you mindful of your expenses? What does this mean for your career?
Yeah.
Where do you need to get to? What safety net do you need? What does that mean as a career, as a mom, as a father? So we really make it holistic, and I would really recommend it for anybody who wants to.
No. That's because it's that type of tailored experience that we all need, basically, because you could just open some app and then try and invest in something yourself. But if you have an investment expert guiding you through it, then what more could you want? You know your money is safe, basically. Exactly. So education is baked into your brand and the journey. And I guess a lot of what on social media as well, a lot of it is around education. Mm-hmm. So what would you say in this market have been the hardest things you've experienced in terms of the education or just pain points?
So one thing I've learned is that Kenyans love educating themselves. And I love that. I think even with my team, when I empower them, I always say, if you're not learning in this role, we need to find something else for you to do. Yeah. Because growing as a human, learning, upskilling yourself is the most important thing you can do. But one thing I found just generally is that when we first launched, we went with a whole online model. So it was very much digital, social media marketing, webinars, which you could say are kind of off the ground. It's only because of the time we launched. But actually, when it comes to money, the journey or the feeling of actually departing with your money is emotional. Yeah. So in a market like Africa, where people don't necessarily trust regulations, as a business first, one of the harder things to do is build trust. And with this educational model, even though it is quite costly, because you can imagine the amount of hours we're spending educating individuals, but it actually leads to building trust. And it makes the end user feel more comfortable departing with their money. Because it's very different. Like if somebody wanted to try out Hekaya, they can, because they're getting something in return immediately. With investing, you have to be patient. You have to believe that you have to understand what you're investing in, but it takes time. So that's what we learned. The education in this market is both online and offline. So this is why we hired financial advisors to really give advice to our users. And we started with all our active clients first, because they've entrusted us with their money, and actually we're like, let's roll this service out to them so they can actually learn a little bit more. And that means that they're just better equipped. So for example, everyone knows this, but currently inflation is at an all-time high globally, not just in Kenya. The Kenya shilling is weakening significantly. We've not seen numbers like this today in a really long time.
Today is taken for a lot of us who trade in dollars as well. It's
So actually another founder tip, which I wish we had sort of thought of, and I guess it's a learning, is when you're doing your pricing and some of your inputs are in US dollars and your output is in Kenya shillings. So that means your input, everything, your raw materials, you're buying in dollars because you're either importing them or whatever you negotiated the deal, but you're actually selling the product to a Kenyan market.
Yeah.
Make sure to put in a currency spread, meaning that if the Kenya shilling weakens, you're not eating into your margins.
Yeah.
And I think today a lot of businesses, I mean, I was receiving calls and stuff. It's been a bit of a stressful day for everyone.
Yeah. Because
it's really difficult to, again, increase your price to a customer when they're used to it. So think of that before when you're doing your pricing.
No, because that's really important. Because even if you're doing it in increments, your loyal customer will always know that it's gone up. And if they're used to your product, they're okay with it.
Yeah.
But if trying to sell that, even that little increment to someone, it's always difficult. But
So how do you manage that particular area?
I think we go back to the quality of what we're selling, and that's how we've done it. Because the price jumped quite significantly from the beginning when we didn't design everything in house and didn't lean on the fabric that we do. But then when it went to the fabric we use now and then doing the design work, so that's what we try and like sell it through is the quality of the item that you're getting, and maybe not being able to find it so readily at that price point in this market. But just the whole way of just trade at the moment is just killing a lot of businesses. It's tough.
So one thing I like about Hekaya is that I feel the generation change and shift is now moving away from fast fashion to actually long-term pieces. And I really do like the quality of your product.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
You know, you can repeat wear it several times. You can dress, and what I like, it's versatile. You can do different things with a different jacket, belt.
Oh, thanks.
And if you pull out one of my first pieces, actually, I can probably still wear it today. And I think that was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, thank you very much. But we're kind of like grab out the closet, don't need to iron type of gals, you know. So anyone who's that type of, then, you know, you lean on that.
Yeah.
But kind of so what does because from what you're telling me and what I'm listening to as well, there needs to be a lot of educating and keeping up with, obviously, the financial markets and just the world that we live in. So what does a typical day look like for Radhika as CEO of Ndovu?
Oh, wow. Typical day. So I'm a mother.
To a beautiful baby boy.
I am. Yeah, I love him dearly. So my day starts quite early.
Yeah.
I go to the gym. Come
F45.
home. F45. Yeah, I love F45. If you want to get in touch for a free class, get my email from Rash and I'll take you guys. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Are you the 6 a.m. or the 5 a.m.?
So 6 a.m. We had like this challenge and I unfortunately didn't attend, but the instructors were like, 5 a.m. is going to win. Actually, 6 a.m. won.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So supporting my 6 a.m. fellow workout buddies.
Yeah.
I have to work out because the reality is that there is always so many stressful things I deal with every day, and that energy builds up in me. And so my one way of coping with being anxious is actually working out.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I've worked out that day, I feel there's an energy release and I'm set for the day. I also like to work out in the mornings because my day can run late.
Yep.
And then I get frustrated because I've not worked out. And my day's running late.
In your mind, egging at
me, exactly. So I work out, I come home, I spend a good quality hour and a half with my little baby boy. He's normally pulling my hair. I'm covered in like milk and there's,
Is there an outfit change usually at this point?
There is, I like a shower with him. Now he's at the stage where he's crawling, walking-ish.
Oh, bless.
So playing with him, etc. And then my day starts with work. And we have a hybrid model. So we do Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays in the office.
Oh, amazing.
And then Tuesdays and Thursdays at home. And the reason being is that when we're in the office, you actually end up doing less work. So we've like segregated our days with deep work and then meetings. Yeah. So I'm in meetings back to back. Yeah. I'm probably eating lunch while I'm having a meeting. Yeah. But then I do try and do a hard stop at 5:36.
Okay.
So that means I come home and then I put my phone away. Yeah. And again, I have about an hour and a half with my son. Yeah. But typically the day is full of strategy, customer calls, really understanding, looking at data. Where's the business going? Are we growing fast enough? Investor calls, looking at, so we're finally putting in processes. It takes time. Yeah. Rome isn't built in a day.
Yeah, because first you just need to get traction. You need to find what works. Then you can set up
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think,
Yeah.
there's a lot of messaging coming that you should cut down burn. Like, so that so
Yeah.
means like reduce jobs. You've probably seen lots of things in the papers about companies laying people off.
Yeah.
But we were so small to begin with that this year we hired.
Yeah.
And actually, I think when it comes to being a founder, that figuring out the right time to hire is important.
Yeah.
It must feel like a big cost, but then it gives you time to think about strategy.
Yeah, of course.
And reflect.
Yeah.
And then I come home, I spend a wonderful hour and a half, get ready for dinner, spend some time with my husband, and I try not to work in the evenings because I don't sleep well. So you kind of have to figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
And then I wake up early in the morning the days I have to work harder.
Yeah. And then how is it that you balance motherhood and being a CEO?
So I have a lot of help.
Yeah. But we all need, there is absolutely nothing wrong.
There is nothing
As
wrong.
founders, we all need help.
We all need help.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
So first of all, I live with my family.
Yeah.
So my husband's mom and dad.
Oh, nice.
Honestly, one of the best blessings, especially at the start of this journey, because you're not worried about, is my baby okay? There's somebody at home always looking after. We have nannies that help with cooking, cleaning. And of course, I have outsourced like appointment bookings and things like that to my assistant.
Yeah.
Because you need the time back. And so it is a really difficult journey. You're always finding imbalance. So there's never a day I said, I've spent enough time with my son and my husband and also at work. Wow. So I've just become used to being in balance. Yeah. And so that means some days I'm working really hard. Yeah. But then on other days, I'm fully focused on the family. Yeah. And I think women can have it all. So this goes back to the inequalities in when it comes to, and the pressures women have, but you can have it all and there's nothing wrong with, you should be unapologetic about having help.
No, I think that that's really important because I think when we were growing up, we were taught that women can't have it all. It's either or.
Yeah.
And I think the narrative is starting to shift because a lot of, not just business owners, but, corporate as well. Yeah. But just women can have careers, they can raise families, they can travel, whatever it may be. And I think it's important to have these conversations because it doesn't come naturally to women sometimes to talk about it in that sense.
Yeah.
So how do you find peace or rather clarity in all the chaos? What is your vice? Yeah.
Interesting. What's my vice? So weirdly enough, this is going to sound so bad, but by the end of the week, I need a glass of wine.
What's your poison?
What's my poison? Yeah, a glass of wine, red or a white. Yeah. I do like a rosé if it's the daytime. Yeah. But because the week is super stressful, I do enjoy a glass of wine. Yeah. It's really embarrassing saying, but
no, it's not embarrassing at all.
By the end of the week. No, but I think,
surprised you said a glass and not a bottle.
That's true. Find me on the weekend after this tomorrow. No, so I think there are ways you find techniques of coping. I think my vice very much is working out. I'm not very good at this, but I should become trying to meditate regularly. Yeah. I also try and do some reflection time. Like, what did we do well in the week? What didn't work so well in the week, and what can we change? Yeah. And then I have to make a conscious effort of when I'm at home with the family, the phone has to be away. Yeah. Otherwise, you're always connected. Yeah. But I do love hanging out with the girl mates. Yeah. I like going out. Yeah. We don't do as much of it now because we're super stretched. But it's okay. That will come in time.
The good old days of the early 20s uni life,
Oh my
when
God.
What you were stressed about was so stressful.
Oh, I think the thing at university you were stressed about was, can I make my lectures? And also, what outfit
When am I wearing to the club tonight?
What am I wearing to the club tonight? Exactly.
So in terms of working, so kind of this year's theme of International Women's Month, as you said, because neither of us are doing a day. The day's gone.
The day was so gone. And the week also passed by.
Yeah. So month. So it's around...
And we deserve a month.
We deserve a month, isn't it?
Do.
Yeah. So it's innovation and technology for gender equality, or there's a debate around equity versus equality. But what's really interesting as well is that you don't have a fully female team. It's got a good mix of male versus female. So in terms of strengths, is it something that you've noticed that you and your co-founders bring to the table, male versus female?
So I actually think it's very important to have a balanced team. Yeah. Because we all, at our team, 45% female and 50% male. So kind of equal, but not really. And it's really important to have a combination. Yeah. Because there are times when I'm processing information, I have lots of biases as a woman that don't really exist in the mind of a male. Yeah. And so when we're thinking or brainstorming across a strategy, it becomes very apparent because there's three of us, so one female, two males. and it becomes very apparent on our biases, and actually it helps us do better problem solving. So I know I'm all pro women, etc., but it's very important to have a balanced team, only because the thinking is very different.
No, that's really important, because I feel a lot of our team is, well, no, it's actually there's one token male, but I know a lot of, especially if you're female founded, then you tend to get female. And I feel maybe if you're like product, ours is fashion, if you're skincare, then you might tend towards just getting women, but it's important to get that balance. And also in terms of just the way that the industry is moving, obviously in Africa, what are your perceptions on how, particularly what you're doing in terms of micro investing, but just generally how it's all shifting in Africa?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things on that point. I think so just from a gender diversity, inequality, so there's innovation. There's a lot of work still to be done through technology to allow females in the villages to actually have access to financial knowledge and tools. So that's whether that's a bank account, budgeting. I was at a conference recently and the key theme was some females in the rural village won't tell their husbands they've taken a loan. So there's no really financial intimacy. And I think that's really apparent across the African continent. And at not just at low levels, as across the entire spectrum, high net worth individuals, middle income. And if you are honest with each other, the financial power you have together as two people is significantly more than keeping it separate. But I think that's a whole nother issue people need to solve. But there's still a lot of work to be done between bringing innovative products, solutions to women across the different stages of levels of income. The second thing around how I see women evolving in Africa, I am pleasantly surprised with the good quality work I get from all my female partners. Whether they work for me, they work at other companies, they're diligent, they're excellent. And I think the barrier of us thinking that you can't have it all is changing. So women are now more, I can do it all. And I think that's something that is super exciting. There's now more women in boards than there ever were before. There is a woman, there's a seat at the table for the woman. And actually one weird experience I had when I first came back, I think this happens slightly more softly and subtly when you're working at big corporations in London. You kind of get sidelined, but it's always based around, oh, we found someone better for the role. You don't have the skill set, or you have too much on your plate. We want to make sure you're not stressed. But I remember I had the second investor meeting, and I went in with my co-founder, and I did the pitching, but the male investor on the other side only spoke to him.
That's terrible.
It's awful.
And you pitched the entire deck.
I pitched the entire deck. And again, when he would ask a question, I'd answer, but he would look at my co-founder. As soon as that meeting was over, I told my co-founder, we're not taking his money. And before, I feel more so, I mean, that was one off, but back in the day, we had to fight to be, have a seat at the table. I think that's changing because even other people are recognizing women have a lot more to offer. Even, I mean, this goes back into Indian households, African households. I was talking to another colleague of mine, and she said, my parents always listened to my brother until recently they realized, hold on, our daughter brings a lot more value to the table.
No, I mean that's prevalent African and Indian society, but it is, you have to be unapologetic, and it is important. It's changing. It's almost like kind of once you enter the field, then you get exposed to a lot more women who are doing it. Just like when you buy a new pair of trainers and everyone's wearing your trainers. No, it's not quite the same thing. But you get what I mean.
I get what you mean.
So in terms of I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I guess once, businesses and your business grows a lot more, is there one particular area that you enjoy or see yourself kind of slotting into more? Or
So it's a question I grapple with. I also believe that you as a CEO today may not be the right CEO at 7 years in when you're making $100 million in revenue. Some people either grow with the role, and actually, because the organization gets so big, you lose control, things are different. It might not even be the place where I want to be. It's a good question. I do know exactly what I like and what I don't like. And I try and do more of the things I don't like, because I see there's values that are learnings in there that can really help the business. But to answer your question, yes, I know exactly. I won't even say what they are because but definitely strategy.
Yeah.
So it goes back to like after 5 years, as this is going, would I exit the business and start another one?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So you'd be the serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, I'd love to be.
Yeah.
But we have a lot more learning to do. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's just because you hit the nail on the head because you're talking about money when people let go of it. It's a lot more emotional in that sense because if you're getting something back immediately, it's fine. But if you're investing in something else, it's different.
Yeah.
But it's also that education which goes along with it, and the continent is expanding so much. Do you find a lot of the changes, like for example, Uganda is starkly different in mentality from Kenya, for example, or?
So we're actually looking at expansion right now, and I would say the East Africa region is more similar to Kenya. So I'm talking about Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania, than any other country in Africa. And so when people or investors are like, "Yeah, we invest in Africa," I'm like, "It's not a country. It's a
no. We're not the United States. It's not this. It's very offensive. There's a book, Africa is not a country, but anyways, yeah.
No, I know, and it's a really obvious thing. They're like, "Yeah, but." We can look at Africa as an entire country. I'm like, no, you can't. It's actually very different.
Yeah.
And some of the key learnings I've found is that, like you mentioned, the cultures are very different in every single different part. Yeah. The cost of doing business is very different. I think the biggest challenges companies face in Africa is that we don't have the infrastructure. So remember I mentioned like trust is a difficult one. So we don't have trust.
Yeah.
And nor do we have the infrastructure to grow our business as easily as you could if you were in the States.
Yeah.
So,
it's sad, isn't it? Because trust is a big thing for us and we're selling a completely different product, for example, but it's the fact that people are not trusting local brands and local born brands. So it's just about giving it a chance. But anyways,
But I will give Kenyans kudos. They are very good at trying a new product. There is always adoption. They always give the product a chance. I think it's because we still haven't found like one great player in each space.
Yeah.
So there's nobody like a Zara here that everyone loves, and you could be the Zara of the future, like the Africa Zara, because you are delivering and focused on good customer service, good quality, good pricing. And I think this is why there's so much opportunity in this chaos that you can be that provider. But it's going to take time because if you were in Europe, your logistics is solved. Yeah. Your payments structure is solved. The things that matter of you to do business are solved. Whereas in Africa, if I'm moving from Kenya to, let's say, Zambia, I have to figure everything. It's like setting up a business all over again. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of work. So having said all of this, there is a lot of work other companies are doing to solve for that. But it's just not where it needs to be in order to be compared to a company in the States or the UK.
So would you say from a digital lens, a lot of the companies are early adopters?
Yes. I agree.
No, that's something that I agree on as well, because it's just a lot of the learnings. And I mean, just this podcast, for example, a lot of what you get in the UK, the States, it's not applicable for Africa, but just to be able to talk about it more and for the founders to come together, it is important because we all are trying to grapple in a new space. So on that note, what advice would you give to other female founders out there?
So actually, I'm going to take it a step back. I met with an investor in London. I was in London recently, and she said to me, I've only been looking at Africa for 4 months. And then she proceeded to say that she doesn't appreciate the space that we're in, savings and investments, and there's no value to be.
And she agreed to meet you.
And she agreed to meet me. So firstly, she wasted my time, which, okay, it happens. It's part and parcel of life. But secondly, you've only seen Africa in 4 months. So my advice to every single African founder, male or female, is when somebody doesn't have the context, the reality on the ground is very different. Yeah. You could sit abroad with your fancy offices and say, I have this much money to give away, but they're the wrong type of investors to have on your cap table. So cap table is who invests in your actual company. Instead, you're better off working with African VCs. A few names are like Partech, Endeavor, and they understand. And they're a bit more patient with you if things don't work out. Because they get it. So one advice is with investors, take it with a pinch of salt. They need to know the area better. You're the founder. You're doing all the heavy lifting. Trust your gut. But for female founders, I think more importantly, we need to become better at delivering our vision. So you probably heard this a lot of times, but when a guy looks at a job role, that, he's
I like this analogy.
I love this analogy, because a man will look at him and be like, oh, I can do 60% of this. I'm ready. I must get the job. And I would look at that and be like, oh, I don't know, the 40 thing. Oh, maybe I'm not qualified.
I can't do the one thing. Oh, no.
Oh, no. And I think that's what we need to embody, is making sure that we are putting ourselves forward, putting ourselves in uncomfortable positions. And then lastly, I'd say we're already doing this anyways, and we need to keep doing it, is supporting other female founders. And to be honest, my experience in this ecosystem has been that people are really helpful. And regardless if somebody isn't, I still make sure to help them, because I know it'll come around in good karma.
Full circle.
Yeah, it does. It always does.
So, but I mean, like, to your point as well, there's a lot that you had to learn as well. When starting, you don't know everything. We're learning every day, isn't it?
I still don't know everything.
No, I don't know everything either. But
I guess there's some value there. It's just get started. I think we put so many limitations on ourselves, like, oh, not today, tomorrow. I'm not ready there. The reality, even I found this with becoming a mother, you are never going to be ready for motherhood. It just happens.
But that's a very steep learning curve with no days off.
No days off. Literally no days off. But the point is, look, we're fine. Like, I'm fine. I'm here. I have a little one, and I'm running a company, and everything works itself out. And it's the same when setting up a business. I also recommend having mentors. So it's actually really difficult to find meaningful mentors, because the business you're running is so different to everybody else. And so you won't find one mentor that solves all your questions. So I actually have probably 6 different mentors that I rely on different areas.
That's amazing.
So, a female that has a family, and how does she manage that? Somebody in the regulation space, somewhere global that's looking at savings and investments. And I'm really looking for a strategic advisor. For someone who's done this before in a different market, please hit me up if you're listening to this podcast. Again, because you can't build it on your own, and you just get a lot of help.
No, that's amazing. No, that's really good advice. But it's just the getting started, because you won't know until you get started.
So Rashlin, what did you find were your biggest setbacks or limitations when you started?
So I think it was not leaning enough and getting help. So it was just going in, but doing it solo. And then, a lot of people would know this, or not know it at all. We did start again. And that was because it didn't go into it with the right strategy, mentality, or team. And then once we did get those things in place, then we did start to grow. And I agree with you. I think in this space, a lot of the founders, male, female founders, are really collaborative and supportive, because we all are trying to solve for different pain points, but everyone is in this market together. And I think that's really useful, important. But you won't know until you try.
You won't know until you
otherwise
try.
You'll just sit in your head, and that's not a good space to be.
No, it's definitely not a great space to be.
So what's next for Ndovu?
Oh, good question. So I've had a stressful day this morning, looking at strategy, numbers. Again, going back to where markets are, I'm sure everyone is feeling this. Things have got so much more expensive.
It's ridiculous.
So that means our average consumer now needs to be smarter with the little bit that they're saving. So it shouldn't sit in a bank account. But we really are focusing on 2 segments. So one is the B2C, where we have the app, but we also have a tech-led B2B proposition, whereby we recognize we can't get to certain customer segments. So for us to educate someone in middle income versus a low income is very different. And it costs differently. So instead, we're partnering with customers who already have a good network with the mass market to help educate and provide tools for that subset.
No, that's incredible.
So that's super, it's early days still. The data we got through yesterday was super interesting as well. I'm enjoying it. I think that's the main thing. But
as long as the itch is not there to go back to corporate, then you're doing all right.
I don't think I could ever go back to corporate. Could you?
No. So definitely not.
Ooh, those days are long behind us.
Definitely. No, but thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, Radhika. I hope that anyone who's listening, take your money out the bank and put it in Ndovu. But it's and your Instagram handle is Ndovu as
Tech.
Ndovu Tech.
Ndovu Tech.
So just hit them up if you've got questions about investing. I've learned a whole lot. I know this is a scary but new space that we all need to pay attention to. But no, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me.